Okay, Mr. Dan here. I'm back. I really wanted to highlight a part of my research and kind of extend on an idea that I think is unique, that I think is important to think about when we're thinking about trauma-informed education. And it comes back to this idea a lot of educators know about, the amygdala. It's this part of your brain that is important for survival. It gives us fear, right? And it takes a picture of kind of bad experiences and helps you not do them again. It's the reason we don't just kind of walk off of ledges and get hurt all the time, because when we were young, our amygdala took some pictures of our first couple of falls that hurt, and we learned to kind of negotiate and survive in this world as a result. This is the part of the brain that's the fight, flight, and freeze part of the brain. Lots of presenters like to talk about tigers or bears in this case, but for me, I like to talk about mean gooses. One time I walked out, I was out on a vacation. I went outside, I went into this big goose's territory clearly, and this goose came after me. I had my 2-year-old daughter with me and my 7-year-old son with me, and we all had different reactions, right? My son just froze completely and just kind of stood there. He was going to just get pecked by this goose. My 2-year-old daughter started yelling like mean goose and knuckled up. She got her knuckles up and she was ready to fight this goose. And I'm the fastest man alive, so I was going to run. But I had to change my plan because I had a 2-year-old and couldn't just leave everyone. So I ended up kind of screaming and going after the duck, and my adrenaline kicks on with my amygdala and my heart starts racing faster, and it helps me feel like ready to survive whatever I need to. And that can be really helpful to kind of get you through kind of tough moments. But this is the part of the brain that actually does that long-term damage from traumatic experiences. And if you're having chronic problems, chronic bad experiences that happen every day, and this amygdala is turning on, it's kind of on fire. It's the part of the brain that really disrupts your neurodevelopment and helps, has a hard time kind of it's good in short doses, but it's bad in long doses. So students who have experienced lots of trauma have different manifestations, and I'm going to talk about a few of them here. One of them is that they get this exaggerated threat detection. This is kind of the hypervigilance fight behavior, right? They get quick to anger. These are students who will get very, very angry when they're trying to complete a tracker and they get a 3 instead of a 4 in one class, and they explode, and they might tip over a desk or extremely overreact. In high school, this might look like a student who refuses to have people sit behind him, she or he will only sit in the back of the room where no one's behind them because they see danger all around them. And they might have had some dangerous experiences as a youth. So they see this anger and they're quick to lash out. And that's kind of a part of a trauma manifestation. Another one is this relationship disturbances. When a lot of the adults around you have been non-trustworthy and have probably been making bad choices around you, you start to mistrust the adults around you. And you see this experience where students who have experienced lots of trauma, they might take a long time to build trust with adults, and that's okay. We need to be patient and understand that it might take them a while to believe that they can have a healthy connection with us. And that's part of their experience, and it's important that we're building this connection with them. So we have to be patient, and this can take, in secondary schools, it can take some students a year or two to really connect with adults and start to really do better, and in elementary school as well. Unhealthy zoning out. This is the disassociation part of your brain where it turns off the freeze part of the amygdala. And so when you're thinking about it, these are students who maybe as a survival skill for their home life, they've gotten really good at turning off their brain for extended periods of time, hours even. And so that might be a great survival skill at home, but it's not productive in the work or in the school environment. And some of these students, they can just turn off their brains and kind of just stare into the distance or zone out for long periods of time, and that really hurts their academic growth. And so we have to be conscious of this happening with our youth and how we can kind of get them out of their shells and get them to re-engage in material. And this is a group that we sort of don't talk about as much as we do. We kind of deal a lot with our hypervigilant students who are lashing out, angry, who are very distrusting, and we spend a lot of time helping those students because they're more disruptive in the school environment. But our disassociating students who are zoning out, we really need to think about how we can help those students re-engage and connect. And some of the trauma-informed principles and practices we're going to talk about are great for helping with students who are experiencing this disassociation. Another version of this is kind of difficulty isolating memories. We believe that students who have lots of bad experiences tend to be really resilient, and that's just not always the truth. In fact, it's quite common for students who have had lots of tough experiences to be actually very delicate. And these are some students who might be like crying hysterically in the hall or in a class. You check in on them and they're like, my dog died 2 months ago. And they really struggle with compartmentalizing and realizing, okay, that was 2 months ago. I have to put this bad experience behind me, and I need to be able to engage in school. And these are our students who check out early, regularly, every day. They can't kind of finish school days often, and they struggle to isolate their memories and engage in the work around them. And some of our ideas coming up will help with all of these. So just be ready for that. And then another practice that we see, or a manifestation that we see, is all or nothing behavior. So students who've had lots of trauma in their life, they sometimes get all into stuff and they decide they're going to turn it around, and they start doing really well on all their academics, or they feel like they're doing really well in their behavior. And if there's people tracking them or helping them with that, suddenly like a B or a 3 score on a test or a quiz can just make them spiral and freak out and suddenly give up and not show up to school for multiple days, or a behavior or a write-up, a teacher correcting their behavior can cause them to just completely lose it, and they have very all in, and then when it's not going well, they are all out. And that's a pretty common experience for students who are manifesting kind of bad experiences from home. And then last one here is that this idea of preferring chaos, kind of the sad homeostasis that students get used to, kind of a really unhealthy maybe stuff that's going on at home where it's really loud and lashing out and lots of anger. And then so they become very uncomfortable with like calm and quiet and lots of structure. And so there are students who might like want to stir things up there when everyone's working and focused, they're the ones who make the weird noises, or if they hear about 2 girls who aren't getting along, they run back and forth and try to stir up problems. Or if there's 2 teachers who are talking bad about each other, they run back and forth and share the messages and try to really stir up the chaos. They've gotten used to that. They enjoy it. It's part of their experience. And so it's our job to kind of help them find that mindfulness and calmness and get used to being just kind of good, productive days. And days don't have to have these bad or wild experiences very often. So this is the big idea I want to add to, though, is this idea of flow. So people always kind of talk about the amygdala as this fight, flight, or freeze. But there's this idea of the flow. Often our amygdala is actually in this really good place called the flow, where we're not hypervigilant, lashing out. We're not dissociating and turning off our brains, or just kind of falling apart all the time. But we're in this positive state where we feel like just right as we learn and work, right? And so there's this time when teachers can help create this environment, and all the trauma-informed principles and then the practices for these principles that we're going to talk about on the next few slides are to get students into the flow. We want students, how do we get students into the flow and ready to work and learn and engage in the material? And so a trauma-informed educator, that's the way they kind of picture that, is that they understand their students have been impacted in life. And their ideas is, how can I help a student walk into my room and do all these great things that really help them engage in the curriculum and have a positive experience? And that is what the guiding principles and practices on the next slide are going to talk to you about.